Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on e-invoicing mandates on the examples of Germany and Poland. My name is Rafał Trojanowski, and I am an e-invoicing compliance expert at Comarch. Before introducing my colleague, let me just briefly go through today's agenda. So you are for sure aware that there is a lot happening in the e-invoicing world, and during today's webinar, we will of course discuss the global trend, but also focus on two very different approaches in Germany and Poland, after which we will discuss ViDA, the European reform, and end with some advice on how to handle all the postponements. Besides me, our speaker today is Michał Kocperek. If I may ask you to introduce yourself as well as take over, the stage is yours.
Just give me a second, please. Wonderful. I believe my screen is visible. I jumped to the slide. Michał Kocperek, I'm the requirements engineer / consultant in the world of Comarch, and I'm occupied with the topic of digitization of different processes or document exchange. What is more, I'm mostly occupied with the German-speaking markets, also Western European markets like Benelux, for instance, or also Nordic countries. And I will cover the first part today. Before we start, some short information about Comarch, so you have kind of some natural imagination who we are. We are already over 30 years old. We are a pretty global company. We operate in 60 countries. We run 90 offices. Also, what is important from the point of view of today's meeting is that we are doing this e-invoicing topic in over 60 countries. Poland and Germany is just part of this picture, let's say. What is else? Comarch is plus 6,000 people worldwide. And also what is interesting, what is kind of making us unique is that we basically develop and deliver only our own solutions. We do not depend on third-party solutions, which gives us a certain flexibility. And the other thing I just want to mention for your information that we are not, let's say, beginners in the world of e-invoicing. This might be, let's say, recognized by different companies we work with. I'm pretty sure you know the brands. For example, the Schwarz Group, so each country where you can go and shop in Lidl, you can be sure that Comarch is also delivering these, but the invoicing service. A similar thing goes for Scania and M&A from Volkswagen Group. We are delivering this invoicing here in over 30 countries. This is also interesting, both in case of Strabag and Scania. There is a lot of B2G invoicing, which is some special place, let's say, because you're exchanging invoices with different public entities. Anyway, starting the presentation and global trends in our invoicing, we will at first jump to the, let's say, general philosophy. Invoicing globally, we can basically split in two kind of systems or models. Invoicing is about delivering our invoice data to different tax offices in different countries, because the tax offices and governments of different countries, they would be happy to know with whom you are making transactions, when, and so on. And there are different ways how you can, let's say, deliver this invoice data to the given tax authority. And there are so-called post-audit models and clearance models. Post-audit is the classical one. It's the one we know, for example, now from Germany or, for example, from Holland, where if the government or the tax authority wants to know with whom you are making transactions, they can announce, hi, I'm coming to control your invoices. And then it takes few days, let's say, and then they can access it to see and, for example, review your transactions. The other system is the so-called clearance model, and this is connected with so-called real-time invoice validation or reporting, where each invoice in the given economy is just being sent to the government on real-time basis. So once you issue this, you are at the same time reporting the invoice to the given governmental body or governmental portal. We might split these two models, post-audit and the clearance model, into PTC and CTC. PTC is a periodical kind of reporting where you have to report the data in different intervals. For example, could be a VIT listing or safety reporting. We, for example, know from Poland and the JPK, jednolity plik kontrolny. The other story is the CTC, which is continuous transaction model. And this one is strongly, let's say, connected with the clearance model, because you are just delivering your invoice data on the real-time basis to different governmental bodies. If we want to see globally how it works now and how it develops, basically this map is being changed almost every week, because different countries are declaring that they are entering into invoicing revolution. There are some countries that have already implemented it. We might mention the Latin America, which was, let's say, the pioneer from this point of view globally. And Europe is, let's say, on the second step, but already in Europe we have few places, few countries where this e-invoicing is already working, this CTC / real-time invoice clearing. We know it from Italy, we know it from Romania, we know it from Serbia. Soon it will be also Poland, Germany, which is kind of different, let's say, reform. Same goes for Spain or France or Belgium. Speaking of e-invoicing / e-reporting, this is pretty important to mention, because not everyone is aware. Like, it's about that the governments of different countries, they want to have access to your invoices. They want to have access to your invoice data, and usually the country that is entering this e-invoicing report / revolution starts with B2G invoices, because the sector of economy is not that huge as the private sector, where private companies are dealing with each other, which is also not that big like the B2C, the consumer sector, let's say. So usually B2G is the first place where you are testing this solution. And we already know it in Europe, because in entire European Union, the B2G invoicing is already mandatory. It does not touch every company, because not every company is dealing with the public authority, but it was, let's say, the training place for the entire invoicing revolution. Once this first step is done, governments are tending to extend the scope of this invoicing also to B2B transactions, which we are facing now soon in Poland, or what we are facing now in Germany or other European countries. Once this is done, usually the B2C kind of e-invoicing / e-reporting is about to enter. The story is that this sector of the economy is way bigger, and it probably will not be some kind of real-time reporting, some more periodical reporting, for example, and every 24 hours you have to report the data, what you are selling to whom. What is also important to be mentioned, now we are just speaking about invoices. However, governments of different countries declared also they would be happy to know what goods are you ordering or what goods are you shipping. So also this shipment taste we can know from other countries like Romania, where the given country, the government wants to know a little bit about what you are shipping or what you are ordering. So the scope is, let's say, intended to grow and to get bigger. Talking about invoicing or e-reporting, there are different models, just for information, so we have some, let's say, general knowledge. The first one we know, for example, from Italy or from Romania or from Mexico, is the so-called centralized model. It's pretty simple. Usually you just name one governmental portal, one format of data that is going to be sent, and one transmission channel. We might call it, that's the simple model, let's say, where you can directly integrate with the given governmental portal where you report the data on the real-time basis. You can do it on your own. There are some countries where service providers, some of those countries are requiring you to use a certified service provider. Doesn't matter, but this is how we are feeding the tax authority with our invoice data. This centralized model can also be reviewed in different submodels, let's say the one in here on the right side, we know, for example, from Hungary, where this is not real-time invoice clearing, where the given governmental portal is receiving the invoice and accepting this. This is just reporting. We're just sending over. You're just passing the data to the governmental authority, to tax authority, and you are just reporting, not clearing your invoices. It would be probably too easy if the world was looking this way, that each country would just implement this centralized model. And there is also something which we might call decentralized model. The pioneer, from this point of view, we might name France, because this is the first country that is intending to introduce this decentralized model. What is difference? Difference is we also have this governmental portal. However, how we report the data to the governmental portal is a little bit easier. The common thing is just reporting data to the tax authorities. However, in this model, there are certified service providers appearing in the entire exchange process, and only such certified providers are then obliged to report the data of the transactions or invoices they are processing to the given governmental portal or the given tax authority. It can be done in different ways. For example, bigger companies, usually they tend to exchange data via different EDI providers like Comark, for example. So these providers, they will take care of this reporting, but also you can just directly get integrated with this portal and exchange the data via the portal with the given recipient. Also, this model is having different deviations in different countries. Countries that might take over after France using this decentralized model would be probably Spain, where we are still waiting for the legislation to be passed, and probably Germany would be the second example for now. We don't know it yet. Good. So once we made a little bit of introduction, how this invoicing works, what are the different models, the post-audit and the clearance one, what is CTC and PTC, and what are the central and decentralized systems, we will jump to the overview of Poland and Germany. But before it happens, there is a survey popping up in here, so you are kindly asked to answer. I hope everyone managed to do so. Let's start with Poland. Poland follows this simple model of the centralized model, the centralized platform, where the governmental portal is going to be KASEF, Krajowy System E-Faktur. There should be just one transmission channel, which is the API to the given governmental portal, the KASEF in Poland. And also there will be only one format, which is KASEF XML. Pretty simple. Poland is following Italy, which is the pioneer in the European Union, followed by Romania, for example, and Serbia. The timeline in Poland is kind of a bit confusing, could we say, because at first it was planned maybe to go live and make it compulsory and obligatory from 2023. Then it was changed to 2024. We were considering the 1st of January. Then basically the deadline should be the 1st of July 2024, but now we know it got postponed to the first quarter of 2026. What is interesting in Poland, this pretty simple system, once you were preparing the project to get connected, to get integrated with KASEF, you have to think of the integration, which can be done on your own, or of course you can help. You can be helped by some certified provider. And this integration can be done on different ways. For example, you name us the communication channel you would like to exchange the data with our platform. Then after we agree on the given exchange channel like SFTP or AS2, some simple data protocol, or might be different kind of REST or SOAP or APIs or services. Once the integration is done, The other important thing is the format conversion, where you have to convert your native format. For example, if you work with SAP, it would be probably IDOC, to the format of the given governmental portal. In Poland, this is CASIF XML in this case. So you need to do this conversion work. It can be done on your own. It can be done when you're just using some provider. Also, some other important thing you have to keep in mind is validations. Always before you send your documents to the given governmental portal, think of the validation, whether your document is technically okay with the requirements of the legal requirements of the given country. And on this stage, for example, duplicate invoices can be, let's say, recognized and fished out. In terms of validations, this is also important because governmental portals like CASIF, in general, they do not offer you any kind of business validation. So, for example, they will not compare your data from the purchase order, your dispatch advice against the data you are having in your invoice. The other story is these portals, they will not, for example, do any mathematical validation like what is the net amount, what is the gross amount, and what is, for example, the tax rate. The other story, such portals cannot do any check against the master data of your suppliers, for example. So keep it in mind while introducing this project in your organization. Another point that is important is data enrichment. Governmental portals won't do any data enrichment for you, but you might need it in terms of your internal processes. For example, when you receive an invoice from a given supplier, for example, you need it to be enriched by different ID numbers, for example, or identification means for you just to enable the processing. The other stories are archiving. In Poland, it's pretty interesting because the state itself offered the archiving service, which is rather untypical on the map of invoicing reforms globally. We also know that the Serbian state is offering this archiving solution. Anyway, this is, let's say, offered by the state. You can always consider a parallel archiving. What is also important in terms of CASIF is you can sleep well and you can be, let's say, steady. You can keep calm while you have received so-called acceptance stages. And then in terms of CASIF, this is so-called CASIF ID. In other countries, these are different serial numbers or digital seals or digital signatures. Once you receive this document, then you can be steady and you can sleep well. So this is Poland, let's say. The other story is Germany. Germany is rather complicated. Remember when I was talking about different CTC, PTC, clearance model, post-audit model, and so forth? Germany is quite unique because Germany is doing the invoicing revolution totally different to other countries. No other country was introducing invoicing as Germany does. What is the first interesting thing? Theoretically, in Germany, you have to be in line with the invoicing law from 1st of January 2025, which is the next year. However, it's not that simple like in Poland, for example, or it will be the case in France where there is a certain deadline and there is the portal, there is the way of communication, and there is also the given format. No, in Germany, it's totally different. There will be no governmental portal introduced in the next few years, at least. What Germany is doing, Germany is pretty well based on PDF exchange. When you talk with average German middle-sized or small company, they are over 90% of invoices they're receiving or they are sending, they are just PDF. So we might say that this economy, to some certain big extent, is based on PDF exchange. And not to make it too much shocking for German taxpayers and German industry and German economy is you don't make this, let's say, drastic change to some structured data. Before it happens, at first, you have to be able to receive and process e-invoices. What we also understand by e-invoice is the e-invoice, which is structured and is in line with the CEN 16391 European norm. For now, in Germany, there are two formats that are officially, let's say, CEN conform, which is Zugpferd and X-Rechnung. There is this tiny crown in terms of Zugwert, because this is, we might call it a little bit the king of the German invoicing regulation and reform, because Zugwert is a PDF with an embedded XML. So once you introduce this format to the commerce, companies will be not that much shocked, because if they are processing PDFs now, they will also be able to process Zugwert, because that's the PDF. The other story, if you want to make use of the structured data, you can always process the XML that is attached. In terms of X-Rechnung, this is just a special kind of XML. However, there is no, let's say, PDF component of it. You can make it PDF, let's say. What is interesting in Germany as well is, at first you are covering the incoming part. So theoretically, officially, you are obliged to be able to receive and process your invoice data. And this is interesting because on the level, this is in the theory, and formally you're just obliged to receive them, but in reality, indirectly, you are also obliged to be able to generate such documents and send them over. Why? Because starting from 2025, it can happen that, for example, your customer will say no to PDF invoices, and then what is your choice? You can send them paper. You probably want to avoid, because you're getting paid later than sooner. Or you have to switch to EDI. If you have no EDI, probably arranging this would be pretty costly. Or you have to align with the CEN conform documents. So on the formal level, you are just obliged to be able to receive and process, but on the factual, let's say, layer, you're also obliged to be prepared for the case where your customer says, sorry, there is no PDF available. So theoretically, only incoming invoices in Germany, but on the factual level, you also have to be prepared to issue structured files. If your customer says, no, sorry, I don't want you to send me any PDF anymore. It's complicated. Another story is, Germany is not introducing any portal for now, at least. It is going to change in the next few years. However, we are not really able now to assess how would it look. The story is, there were some rumors that the German state will introduce some kind of Rechnungsschreibungsportal, which means a portal where you can generate an invoice that would be a decent Zugwert or X-Rechnung. Why? What we know from our colleagues from the implementation team, a lot of companies in Germany are not able to generate a proper Zugwert or X-Rechnung according to the specification. For example, in case of Zugwert, both the PDF and the structured XML are not correct and not in line with the specification. It has to be changed. So we are expecting, probably, there will be some official portal delivered by the German state, probably some web-based application where you might generate a decent Zugwert or X-Rechnung, and probably this would lie some kind of soft law and standard and reference point for other, let's say, companies or providers to know which version of Zugwert you should work with, or X-Rechnung. Also, this catalog of formats can grow. It can be probably in the future, Edifact probably is going to be in line with the CEN norm officially. Now I was told it was on the factual level. In the later stage, Rafael will probably tell you more. What is also interesting and important, there is no channel, there is no portal, there is no channel. So what are doing our customers usually to be prepared for the invoicing revolution in Germany? They are making them let's say, capable to receive such Zugwert or X-Rechnung per email, and they need mechanisms to convert it, because usually their IT systems like SAP or other ERP systems, they are not able to process XML in the Zugwert or X-Rechnung by default. So you need this format conversion. You also, for example, know, and I was mentioning within the Polish mandate, how we can reflect the structure, how the data should flow in Germany. So email would be still, let's say, pretty widely used. I know it's pretty barbaric. It's pretty, let's say, fraud sensitive, and there are different possibilities how we can abuse it. So, but still, email is working, and while you are receiving your support, for example, per email, you will need proper AP automation tool, how you process this data. So, for example, you can fish out different fraud attempts. For example, that the given company is not even your supplier, or for example, the entire invoice seems and looks legit, but only the bank account number, for example, is not correct with the master data you're having. What else? The other story is you might work with email with all its disadvantages. The other story is you might get connected to the EDI network, for example, of Comark, and there will be, let's say, a module where you can just get part of this network. So we will not be, let's say, obliged to work with email, but you might make the use of our platform. So, for example, you can connect to different customers of yours, and also you might be connected with different suppliers of yours. What else? There might be some other channels like EDI, which is already happening now. Probably not everyone will switch to EDI, or PEPL. I'm about to finish, but there is also some kind of list of things that are important. We know from, let's say, real life. So our customers, for example, are asking us a lot about PDF visualization, not only in Poland or Germany, because this is funny, because a lot of your suppliers, or where you are the supplier, probably you have contractual clauses where you have to send a PDF invoice to get paid. Doesn't matter, there is some governmental portal where you already reported your data. Your contractual obligation is to pass the PDF document to your supplier, to your customer to be paid. And this is kind of a little bit barbaric from the point of view of the digitization, but still, there are different rules in different countries how you can create PDFs. For example, in Poland, you need to include some QR code. In other countries, there are no rules. You're just, let's say, you're just sticking to what data you deliver to the given governmental portal. In some countries, there is, let's say, 100% standardization where each invoice in the given economy has to look exactly the same way. The other story is also, in some countries, this is admissible that you include your corporate identity, your logo, your colors on the PDF visualization. In some countries, not. I was also told of some barbaric cases where you had to print the PDF to paper, send over per post to get paid. Another story is self-billing or attachment handling, because governmental portals are not accepting any attachments. So you have to deal with them outside of the given governmental portal. For example, per email or via EDI. What is then with cross-border transactions? For example, self-billing is interesting. A lot of German automotive manufacturers are also producing in Poland. And in order to be able to self-bill themselves, they have to be registered in CASE, for example. The other story, formal technical validations or business or commercial validations, I already mentioned. The other story, acceptance status handling, because, for example, if you want to correct your invoice, you will not pass any credit or debit note. You have to send a corrective invoice, which has to include the CASEF ID of the invoice that was sent before. The other story is when to start. From our point of view, if this is the very, very first project we're having with our customer, it takes about 2 months to get integrated with CASE. But please keep in mind that also you might be obliged internally to adjust your processes. For us, it could be 2 months, but for example, for your organization, it might be half a year. We already know such cases from different customer of ours. So this is rather to be recommended to be early adopter, and please not wait to the last quarter before the application kicks in. Let me just check. I think I'm pretty done. I'm thinking if I covered all the things. Please, I see there is the chat is, let's say, working. Please ask us questions. If we won't be able to address them now, we will do it after. We might just talk a few hours about these topics today as a nutshell. Rafał, please take over. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this detailed overview on what is expecting us in these countries, but I believe that we first should continue with the next survey. Here it is, exactly. Please submit your vote. I'm going to do the same on my side here. Yeah, that was quite detailed, but the discussion on Germany usually allows for a smooth transition to the pan-European discussion as well, mainly because the approach from a legal perspective is quite similar on EU level, or maybe it would be more accurate to say that the Germans in a way followed the principles of ViDA. So the difference between Germany and Poland presented by Michał could be summarized by saying that the countries focus on something completely different as the base of the mandate. Whilst for Poland, the core of the mandate lies in controlling the transmission channel by creating a centralized platform to be used by each and every taxpayer. The Germans started by a simple change of the definition of the invoice in their VAT Act, which has different consequences. And of course, the Poles did change the legislation related to the definition as well, but they only added a new term to the VAT Act, by the way, not really in a pretty way, as it is a bit confusing because it kind of redefines terms which are already well established in other countries and even in the B2G world. But bottom line is the technical aspects of the developed platform determines the shape of the legislation. The Germans started with the legislation and the technical framework is supposed to follow a few years later, once the taxpayers will more or less be adapted to a certain standard, or in this case, compliant to the European norm. So to speak, in other words, the legal change is the first domino to fall in the e-invoicing reform we see in Germany. But back to the European development, you may or may not know that the EU was a bit late to the party in terms of regulating and harmonizing the e-invoicing landscape in Europe. A long story short, they might have underestimated how many countries will follow the footsteps of Italy and will want to introduce a mandate to minder the VAT gap as the main goal. In other words, the VAT Act, which dates back almost 20 years, is simply long due for a change. And once more and more countries started asking the EU for an okay to derogate from the VAT directive in this context, it became clear that the law needs to be adapted as soon as possible. And I do have a feeling that the change would already be enforced, or at least much more advanced, if it weren't for the fact that the so-called VAT in the digital age reform, which is a very suiting name, but a few years too late, wouldn't only cover digital reporting requirements. Another aspect why it's so late, well, similar as in Belgium, where the e-invoicing mandate was also initially part of a bigger reform, similar also as in Germany. If you include the digital reporting requirements in a bigger tax reform, this might create some delays. And we have three pillars of ViDA. The first pillar is what interests us as an e-invoicing provider. It's all about the harmonized approach in the e-invoicing / e-reporting world, which is with its main goal to have a common standard for digital reporting requirements and to introduce mandatory invoicing on intra-community transactions with the option to introduce mandates on national level. The second and third pillars of ViDA are not really going to be part of today's webinar, as they are not affecting our core business. So I am going to skip to the next slide to provide you with some gossip on the ViDA status. Well, the ViDA reform kind of got stuck. Word has it that Estonia, where one of the biggest Uber-like companies comes from, didn't really like the second pillar. And during both meetings of the ECOFIN, which happened a few days and a few weeks ago, no agreement was reached. This means that it is unlikely that an agreement will be reached during the Belgian presidency, which is currently ending. And this is despite the fact that this was one of the priorities of the Belgian presidency, as far as I know. Hungary will follow, and it is yet to be determined if they will want to push through with ViDA or if we will have to wait another 6 months for the next presidency for this topic to become a priority. Well, back to Pillar 1, the digital reporting requirements, which are part of ViDA. It might be an oversimplification, but in a way, the ViDA reform in the context of e-invoicing and e-reporting requirements is about adapting the approach which is already established, adapting to the approach which is already established in the public procurement e-invoicing world. So it's about transposing this to the VIT directive. Just a reminder, public procurement e-invoicing had its reform a few years ago, and whilst in the VAT Act, non-structured files such as PDF files are still considered to be an electronic invoice, this is not the case whenever you are invoicing public administration entities in the EU. So similar as Germany just did, the reform will introduce a new default invoice. The CEN compliant structured invoice will become the default invoice. Again, similar as in Germany, although the wording has some differences when it comes to exceptions. So, for example, the enigmatic word interoperable is not used in ViDA. This means that structured invoices will no longer require the recipient's acceptance. Our experience in Germany already tells us that this might be a huge challenge for the taxpayers. The need of getting the EU's acceptance is no longer going to be there for introducing an e-invoicing mandate on national level as well. And whilst there is no obligation to introduce a mandate on national level when it comes to e-invoicing, we will, however, have a mandatory reporting mechanism for cross-border transactions. So a reporting solution for suppliers and customers of header level data of intra-community supplies, acquisitions, services will for sure be introduced. And despite the fact that the technical framework is not yet known in detail, this is probably how it's going to look. So there will be basically the need to report invoice-related data to the tax authorities, which will share it with the central EU database in form of a CEN-compliant report, which is also one of the reasons why the European norm is like the default standard, which has to be followed also in the invoicing world. So this is the reason. By the way, the European standard will also be adjusted to the B2B world as it was developed within invoicing in public procurement. So it's not perfectly well suited to the needs of VAT transactions. And it needs some adjustments, which is currently happening. Timeline-wise, no need to be stressed yet. First of all, we are still uncertain of how the new presidency will influence it, but even if everything would go according to plan, the introduction of the first pillar is scheduled for 2030, and countries that already introduced their own models, mostly not really in line with the ideas of ViDA, will have to make some adjustments connected to the standardized framework up until 2035. So they have 5 more years to adjust their solution. We're speaking, of course, about Poland, France, possibly Spain. So the countries which already got a derogation decision and their solutions are not fully compliant with what is expected to be part of ViDA. Okay, to wrap up this webinar, a few factors which are indeed playing a huge role whenever a timeline of implementation in a country is defined. The most important factor is obviously the question on complex the introduced model is. I would say that France and Poland are good examples of a very complex solution, despite the fact that Poland is introducing a centralized exchange. It is much more complex than, for example, Romania, where the documentation is just a few pages, and there is not even remotely close. They are not even remotely close in terms of number of features and processes which are handled by the platform. So this is obviously quite important. The more complex the solution, the higher the chance that the mandate will be postponed, which means that for sure the German deadline will probably stand as it is. Second factor is the need of tax authorities. So countries with higher VAT gaps are most likely to rush the mandate and to introduce it despite not being like fully ready and certain that everything will work as expected. There are also, as the example of Romania shows, we'll look for other options to minder the VAT gap. The Romanian road transport platform is not an e-invoicing platform, but it might be used to cross-check the data, which is why it was introduced in parallel to the e-invoicing mandate. Last but not least, the political situation. It quite often happens that whenever the government changes, also the plans are changing. And one of the reasons why we don't know yet exactly when the French pilot phase will happen, for example, is because there is some uncertainty on political level. Same applies for Poland, where the deadline was changed after the new government won the elections in the end of last year. So those tax-related matters, as they are usually a burden for the taxpayers, are very often used politically as well. So you just keep in mind that this might influence timelines as well. If there is high pressure to proceed, then there is most likely not going to be a postponement. Okay, so the question that needs to be asked, how can we avoid chaos because of the constantly changing timelines, or better to say, how can we ensure that the implementation will be smoother? First of all, it makes sense to estimate the most likely timeline, for example, with external providers that have more experience in assessing the readiness of the solution in a country. So we sometimes can quite accurately guess whether there will be a postponement or no. Of course, this is never certain, but it allows for some better planning. Also, the testing of unfinished e-invoicing solutions is an important problem, as they are not fully ready, sometimes even very close to the start of the go live. This means that it is kind of hard to fully test the solution, and we do strongly recommend to make use of all the options to participate in voluntary periods, as this kind of provides the possibility to test out the data flows. Okay, we are pretty much on time, as the webinar was scheduled for 45 minutes, but I suppose we still could and should answer at least some of the questions. Maybe I will read out a few of them. Michał, feel free to jump in whenever a question should touch your part of the presentation today. So the first question today was about the go lives in Germany and in Poland. One is scheduled for 2025. The second one is for 2026. The question is when to start the implementation project and how much time do you require for it? I think that's a question to you, Michał.
Okay, well, let's start with Poland. Basically, you have to be ready let's set it 1st February, but the first quarter of 2026 in terms of Poland. That's the first thing. The other story is you can be done even now, because the Castev platform is working today, where it's not obligatory. It will become obligatory in 2026. For now, you can do it on the voluntary base. A lot of our customers where we are providing this invoicing service, they're already integrated with Castev. So once Castev becomes obligatory, you just switch to the productive environment, let's say from the test one, but already the connection and the integration is tested. So let's say it's pretty simple, and I will encourage you to be this kind of early adapter and get integrated, for example, on the beginning of next year or on the end of this year. This is Poland. In terms of Germany, we have less time. It's 2025. We are already closing the second quarter of 2024. And please remember, in Germany, you are not obliged to process and receive. You are obliged to be able to receive and process, which means for now it would be enough, for example, that you gather per email your Zugwert or X-Rechnung documents, and then that you are able to convert them, for example, to your native format. In terms of Zugwert, you can be in line with the law once you are processing Zugwert, which means you can also process this PDF, not to make it too drastic. Rafael, please pick the other one. I hope
there are a lot of questions.
Was good enough.
There are a lot of questions. We won't be able to read them out all, but we will for sure address all of them after the webinar. I will pick one more with regard to Germany. Why only incoming invoices are mandatory in Germany? When do we expect to implement outgoing invoices?
Mm-hmm. Okay, why? Very good question. I was asking myself several times, why is Germany doing this so different? And I also partially covered this answer during my presentation. So from one point of view, at first, you are obliged to be able to receive and process CEN compliant invoices in German, right? So this is let's say, this ability is the direct obligation. This is pretty tricky because on the factual layer, on the practical layer, you are also more or less obliged indirectly to be able to issue and to send over this structured file, the CEN compliant document.
Okay.
You are not just because this is tricky, you are not obliged to, let's say, officially you are not obliged to issue and send it over, but you have to take into consideration that your customer can say, please don't send me no PDF anymore. When he says so, you have to go for paper invoice you probably want to avoid, or you have to do it via EDI or the structured file. So on the end of the day, on the factual layer, let's say you are also obliged to release this invoice in this Zugwert or X-Rechnung format. Pretty theoretically not, but in real life, yes.
Okay, I would say we will pick out two more questions. One is interesting because it concerns the PEPL network. So the question was, is it mandatory for businesses to utilize the PEPL network for e-invoicing in Germany? No, it is not mandatory. This is an optional transmission channel. Germany did not define any transmission channel. They just changed the invoice definition. There was also a second part to this question. Additionally, could you explain the procedure for recipients to receive incoming invoices when they are sent via the PEPL network? So in order to receive the invoices sent through PEPL, you have to have your own access point. We are, of course, a well-established PEPL access point, which will register you in the PEPL network and receive the invoices from the access point of the invoice issuer. But, well, details on that we can provide in the written answer. Another questions with regard to ViDA. I'm looking whether there was some question related to ViDA. Okay. Why the EU is doing ViDA when a lot of countries already have or will have an e-invoicing platform? Well, only the countries that applied for the derogation decision of the EU Commission are introducing e-invoicing mandates, and there are only a few countries which did so. The EU aims to harmonize to avoid pure chaos in Europe, which is why they are going through with ViDA. That's the main reason. Due to time reasons, I would say that we will provide answers to all the other questions in written form. Thank you for your attention. And well, we'll see each other next time. Thank you.